Welcome to Ground Truth. Join Sam Faddis as he looks for truth from those on the ground, in the middle of the action with key insights regarding critical national and international issues. Listen for discussions and interviews on national security, terrorism, politics, espionage, the paranormal, and weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome, I'm Sam Faddis. This is Ground Truth, coming to you today from Keystone College, WKCV 103.5 FM. We do a lot of important stories, as I think you know, in this program. One of the many things that blows my mind a little bit about this story is that up until about 2-3 weeks ago, I was completely unaware of the existence of the lady that we're going to be talking to and the program she runs, which is a reflection not on her, but on me. Ryan, our station manager, who does pretty much everything, and one of the things he does is help with researching and finding guests and helping us come up with the kind of stories we find, is the guy who turned me on to Diane Latiker and her program, and it sounded interesting, and then I spent about 2 minutes on the internet researching to think, oh my God, we have got to do this program, and again, I cannot believe that I have not heard of this program before, this lady and what she's doing before. So, Diane, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. So honored to be here.
Well, thank you for making the time, because God knows I think this is an incredibly important story. So, as I understand it, you run a program called Kids Off the Block in Chicago. And
yes.
Can you give us just a brief outline of what is that? What's Kids Off the Block?
Kids Off the Block is a community-based after-school program that basically just helps young people ages 10 to 24. We help young people as far as tutoring and mentoring, like regular programming, with sports, conflict resolution. But really we help young people also to navigate, to go towards peace, to give them positive alternatives to the gangs, the violence, the drugs. And we do that through getting to know them and inviting them into my home and finding out what they need and how we can help them.
So I don't know Chicago particularly well. I've been there a few times in my life. I gather that the area where you're operating is an area where there are some significant challenges for young people, and they are being pulled into criminal activity and subject to being recruited by gangs and that kind of thing. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
So what's the origin story here? You haven't been doing this your whole life. How did you get into this? How did you decide to start doing this?
Well, actually, I was 46 years old, into my second marriage. I have 8 kids, 4 boys and 4 girls. And actually, it just happened, to be honest, because my youngest daughter was at home, Aisha, 13 years old, and I wanted to keep up with her. And she had 9 friends, 13 to 15 years old. And so I just started taking them places, swimming, skating, fishing, whatever I could do until she graduated high school and went to college. And then I would be free, I thought. And so I did that. I started, getting into their lives. And one day my mom saw it and she said, Diane, those kids like and respect you. You should do something with them. And I said, no, not in my mind. I'm going, no, I don't want to do that. I thought about it and I prayed about it for like 3 days. And then one day I just went to Aisha and her friends and I said, if I started something in the house, would you guys come? I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know anything about programming or, how to help young people that weren't mine. But I sat down in my living room and I listened to them. And when they got through talking, I thought I knew these kids because they grew up with my daughter, but I didn't know them at all. The gangs were recruiting the boys and all of them were failing in school. And I'm like, oh, Lord, what can I do? But I decided to just start out by helping them with homework. And next thing I know, there were kids I didn't know knocking at my door asking for help. And then there were 75 or more every day and every night in the span of almost 3 months. And that's what it did. It just took off on its own.
So, you and I spoke briefly the other day just to get acquainted a little bit. And when I was talking to you then, I think one of the things that struck me was the comment similar to what you just said about how you didn't really know what you were getting into. And I laughed, not because it's funny, but because it strikes me that that's so true of so many worthy endeavors in life. You make the right decision and do the right thing, and we'll figure out exactly what we're doing as we go along. Sometimes painfully, I would imagine.
Oh, yes. If I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. I tell everybody I came into it backwards, and I'm so glad I did. I really am, because I had no idea that it was so dangerous and that it was so overwhelming. I had no idea that these young people were going through this every day. Now, I had my own kids, but I just didn't get it. That I knew the things they were going through and that we had to deal with. And we had to deal with the gangs, and we had to deal with drugs and all kind of stuff, trying to keep them away from that or whatever. But I had no idea these other kids were, I had homeless kids sleeping on my floor. I had kids in and out of my house day and night. The neighbors were calling the police on us. It was really, I had gang leaders in front of my door threatening me and my family, and I had to have them arrested, van shot up, you name it. So I had no idea that helping young people in my community would be all this attached to it.
Well, you touched on something there that I'd like to explore a little bit more. If you're intervening in a process where gangs and criminal organizations are preying on these kids, pulling them into activity, of all sorts, and you sort of interrupt that pipeline, start giving an alternative to young men and women, I would imagine you're going to face some serious attempts to intimidate you, to back you down, to get you to get out of the way.
Yeah, you're putting it very nicely. They wasn't playing with me. They were not playing with me.
Yeah, I would imagine they would not. I've spent some time in my life around violent people. Things can get real fast. And, it takes some guts on your part, but, can you give us some idea of the kinds of things they did beyond what you've just laid out for us?
A couple of things. One night, I was in my house, and one of the young people had drove past my house, and he called me on the phone, and he said, "Miss Diane, your house is surrounded." And I said, "Hmm?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Your house is surrounded. They're in black hoodies." And I looked out, and I was like, "Oh, my God." And we cut the lights off and dived on the floor. We dived on the floor, and then we called the police. And then another time, my mother and I were sitting on the porch, and this gang member rolled up on his bike with a .45 in his hand, waving it and cursing at us. And then he left and came back in a car and threw a brick up on the porch at us, And then another time, I had like 52 young people with me. We got on a school bus and was going to an event at a high school, and we got off the bus, and 3 young men, one of them had an AK-47. And because a couple of the boys on the back of the bus were throwing gang signs as we were parking. And so I got my mom with me, my auntie, and, I often say to myself after those things over, are you crazy? Because the only thing I could think about was to keep walking up on those young men, begging them not to shoot. And I had to do that.
So how do you, you made reference to having, within a relatively short period of time, 75 kids, and I know that you're dealing with a lot more than that now.
Oh, yeah, a lot more now, yeah.
How many kids are you helping right now? Some rough number. What's the kind of order of magnitude we're talking about?
Last year was 301.
Wow.
So we haven't did a final count for this year, but it all depends on what's involved. It could be in a workshop or the tutoring part or the mentoring part or an event. It all depends because it's so broad. Young people don't have issues that you can just pinpoint on and stay in that lane. They have a cross-board of issues, and they're all different. So I'm not your typical organization in the sense that we don't just bring kids in and, say, 5 was here or 20 was here. We do attendance, but we don't do that. We want to know these young people. That's the only way we can help them. And so they run the gamut. It could be 30 here today. It could be 21 here tomorrow. That's just the way it goes because we don't turn down any of them. So, I don't look at kids as numbers. I don't look at young people as, our program is so big and we got so many. No, we're just trying to help whoever comes. Whoever is seeking our help or whoever we hear about that we can reach out to, that's the bottom line because the thing is this power thing, right, this hope. If we can get a kid to hope, and by the way, that's our biggest issue. Everybody thinks it might be the violence, but it's hope. It's giving young people the hope to believe that they don't have to have power in the gun. And if we can get them to believe that and help them to go to other avenues with resources, then it takes the power away of the gun. And then we've done our job because people get to live in peace and, You know, I followed a 16-year-old who had a bad name. He was terrible. He was terrorizing our community. And I saw him one day, and I started walking behind him, and he turned around and he said, "What do you want, old lady?" And I said, "Can I talk to you for 1 minute?" And he said, "No." He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I just want to talk to you." And he cursed at me. And he said, "Get away from me. Get your so-and-so away from me." And I said, "Please, just let me talk to you." And he said, "For what?" And I said, "Because I can't sit on my porch in peace if I don't talk to you." And he said, "Well, I don't want to talk to you." And I said, "Well, you know why I am." I said, "Because your friends come to my organization." I said, "If you ever need my help, let me know." And I walked away. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, it was a little over 2 weeks, and he knocked on that door. But that was scary because I knew who he was. But it was true. I can't do anything in my community if I'm so afraid of these young people.
So go back to the point of origin here. You're 46 years old. I know you're thinking, you have 8 children of your own, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So you got to be thinking, at some point here, I get to actually begin to relax and do something other than take care of kids. And I only have 4, but trust me, I can identify with that sentiment. And instead, you take this plunge to start inviting what ultimately ends up, being over the course of a year, hundreds of kids into your home. Where do you get the resources to do that? I mean, how do you just financially do that?
Well, in the beginning, it was me begging my family. By the way, 4 of my kids, 4 of the 8, they didn't like it at all, so they had nothing to do with it. They said it was too dangerous, and I was letting gang members in my house. It was true. But I would beg my family. I would beg friends to feed them, to buy a coat in the wintertime because they would wear like 2 or 3 hoodies, and they'd be freezing. To buy shoes because if they had a hole in their shoe, they wouldn't go to school. So I would beg everybody I could find. And once I got into it in about a month, I started going to all these meetings. I would hear about a meeting, and I'm there because I'm looking for people who can help. I'm thinking, naively, by the way, that everybody wants to help these young people, but they didn't. So my husband and I, we were doing what we can out of our pocket and didn't have much. My husband threatened to divorce me quite a few times, by the way. And so he had a legitimate story, too.
Uh-huh.
We just did what we could. And I have to attribute it to my belief, my faith, because half the time I didn't know where the funds came from and why somebody would help us. And but they would. And so we kept going. We kept going and helping as many as we could, and the word just kept spreading. And I tell everybody about young people, if it's something they like, they're your best advertisers in the world because kids just kept showing up.
So I think you told me the other day when you and I spoke briefly on the phone that at one point you sold your husband's television. Is that true?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I had begged him for it for like 2 weeks.
And he did not, and in fact, he didn't divorce you, so that says something about him.
But yeah, he's still with me 34 years.
Even though you sold his TV.
Yeah, well, it was that big giant TV, and everybody wanted one, and it was. I looked at it as money. I sold it, and one day he went to work, and I can only tell you that it didn't go good when he got home from work. But anyway, I got $600, and I bought used computers and printers to help the kids with homework. And so there were many more times, though.
So what are the kinds of successes? I mean, we've been talking about challenges here, but there got to be the things that keep you going, the successes that keep you coming back to doing this.
Oh, yeah. Like last month, Walter Williams came to see me. So Walter Williams graduated a couple of years ago from the University of Wisconsin, and he got a full scholarship. But Walter came to me at 14 years old. It was him and his 2 brothers, and his mom was gone. And I don't know where, but his 80-year-old grandmother was raising all 3 of them. And Walter would come with his friends. And I found out one day that Walter and his brothers needed help. And so I started helping them. And Walter was the kid that wasn't in the gang, per se. He was just surrounded by it. But I knew in my heart he was a good kid. So I helped him, and he stayed with me until he was 18 years old, until he went off to college. And I hadn't seen him in about a year because he started his own business. And he's mentoring young people, hundreds of them, in Wisconsin. And so that makes it all worthwhile to me. Both of his brothers have followed in his footsteps. They were younger than him. And it's just so many like him, like Terrence, TJ, we called him TJ. And TJ the kids used to make fun of him when he used to come into my house because he was a loner, and kids picked on him and stuff. But I knew that he had something in him, and he did. He was going to be great, and I knew that. And he also got a full scholarship to college. He was on the front page of our newspaper. Mm-hmm. And he went off to college. He got a great job working in a bank as an economist. And he quit his job, his good job. And now he's going around the country mentoring young people. It's stories like that. I must tell you about Maurice. Maurice is 13 years old, and he came to me, knocked on the door one day. This 7th grader. He knocked on my door, and he said, "Are you Miss Diane?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, you the lady they say can help me." I said, "Who, me?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, what do you need?" He said, "I want to change my life." And I said, you haven't had any life yet, Maurice." And he said, "Miss Diane, I robbed." He said, "I beat up people." And I said, "Get in here." And you know what Maurice wanted? He wanted to play football. And Maurice had been sleeping on concrete floors with his mom because his mom was on drugs. So they would get evicted from their apartment, and they'd sleep outside on the concrete in the winter.
So where do you, we've talked about resources. As we're closing in, maybe we got about another 5 minutes or so here. Let me focus on where we are and take us to where
time went by fast.
It flies when you're talking about stuff that's important. I want to make sure we devote some time here to talking about where you are now, where you're getting your resources, and what you need and how people can help you. So, are you getting government assistance of some kind? Is state, federal government, city? No?
No. By the way, I have 7 dedicated volunteers. We have never gotten a salary in 16 years, but we got blessed. A foundation is now paying for us to have a grant writer for the first time. So we're going to try to get salaries at least and get some money for the programs.
So every one of these people has been donating all their time, all these years.
Have stuck with me from the beginning.
Wow.
So they deserve it. But personal donors are our biggest funders. People who care about us. People who believe in what we do, and they send us, $20 here and $50 there, and it keeps us going. That's like 60% of our income. The other is small foundations who heard about us or saw me speak somewhere, and they will help us. So that's where we are. But I want to tell your audience, next Saturday we will host our 13th annual Feed a Teen, like Feed a Teenager, for Thanksgiving. Started out with young people coming to my house, just asking to eat Thanksgiving dinner with me because their families weren't there, or they wasn't getting along with their family. And then the third year was like 20-something, and we said we got to do something. So we rented a tent for some donors, gave us some money. We rented a small tent, and we put it across the street on a vacant lot. And in 2016, we had over 800 in their families. So we're going for 1,000 this year.
You're talking 800 kids and their families.
Their families.
Is what you had, and you're going for 1,000 this year.
Yeah. CNN did a story on it. It was awesome. But we've had 6 gangs come together with their families up under that tent. So we're doing that next Saturday. And then in December, we're doing our 8th annual Christmas toy giveaway, where we give 250 families toys for their kids. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, so let me go back to this Thanksgiving thing. If I'm somebody that wants to help you out, what do I do? In other words, what do you need and how do I get it to you?
So if you want to help us out, if you don't live in Chicago, because if you live in Chicago, you could come and help us serve young people and their families. But if you don't, you can go to the website, kidsofftheblock.us, and donate so we can get more water and juice because they go through it like crazy.
No doubt.
Yeah. Or either help with some desserts for Thanksgiving because we never have enough funds to get enough desserts for the kids to have with their Thanksgiving meal. Because we give them a real meal, a real Thanksgiving meal. Or either you can help with our Christmas toy giveaway for us to get toys for kids. You can do that. Go to the website, kidsofftheblock.us, or you can send a donation to Kids Off the Block, 11623 South Michigan Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60628.
Okay, so I can go on your website, Kids Off the Block, spelled just like it sounds. Is that right?
Yes.
Kidsofftheblock.us, and I can donate right on that website to help you with these specific events, to help you in general. And if I'm in Chicago, you'd be more than happy if I would physically show up and help you.
Yes.
Excellent. I can't believe that you're not getting. I mean, with all the things the U.S. government spends money on, the fact that they can't find money somewhere to help a program like this boggles my mind. Well, I don't know if it boggles.
Mine too.
I don't know if it boggles
my mind. Not that I haven't tried.
I'm sure you have. I would think for the amount of money that gets lost somewhere else in the budget would probably transform your whole program.
Yeah. Yes, it would.
Okay. All right, so kidsofftheblock.us, you can donate there. We've got you said next weekend, the Thanksgiving meal coming up?
Yeah.
And then we got the toy giveaway, but you need money, I presume, year-round for all kinds of things.
For our program.
I think you're doing amazing stuff. I would love to be able to get out there sometime and meet you face-to-face and actually see this program face-to-face.
I would love for you to come out. I would love for you to come out and meet some of the young people.
I can't think. I mean, you're talking about the future of the country, and there are kids all over this country that I think basically are being abandoned. And not only is it not fair to them, but the price we pay as a society when you abandon somebody is enormous. I mean, every one of these kids that you're talking about that's now out there as a mentor, as a role model, could just as easily be spending the rest of his life behind bars and wasting his life, and oh my God, and what a loss for us. You know, think of the talent you mentioned just with 3 examples. All that talent we lose as a society if we don't pay attention to these kids. So,
and think of the families they leave behind because of what they've done.
Yes, and there's this kid, you mentioned this 13-year-old talking to you, and what is the negative impact he's having on other people as he's going down this wrong path.
Right.
There's just loss everywhere instead of turning his life around, and then it's all positive. Diane?
And what does it hurt my husband and I to open our front door to these young people? It doesn't cost us anything. It's not hurting us.
Well, I have nothing but respect for you. And for the man who lost his big screen TV and hung in there, I got to say, I empathize. When Sunday rolled around and he couldn't watch the Bears, that was probably...
it was pretty hectic for a while.
That might have been a painful moment. But I hear you. Diane, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
And thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time on Ground Truth.